where we run multiple shifts, and that helps us keep the clearance of 6 feet between everyone. And then we also shut down an hour every day to clean. And again, we've shortened our hours. With our decorating of the bottles that we do and the vials and the hand sanitizers that we do for distributors and other essential customers, we've had to kind of slow that process down and stop running other items that aren't essential.
Have you found, Kathy, that your customers have understood, those that you might have to wait on doing because it's not essential? Have you seen that there's been understanding with those adjustments?
Oh yes, they've been great about it, actually.
Good. Eric, same question to you. What types of things have you been seeing and adjustments you've made there at CDigital?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Jeff, for putting this together, especially under short notice. I appreciate that. I echo some of the statements already made. Obviously, we're worried about safety, and we had to adjust staffing and work from home, and all those issues. Definitely almost on the fly adjustments are changing daily, if not weekly, because this whole response seems to change daily or weekly. Being in the director of sales and marketing, I couldn't picture in my mind something that would affect every aspect of our business, because we're spread out over so many different industries and a large number of customers, that if one industry like the automotive would slow down, another industry would pick up, and we would always seem to maintain or grow sales. Just like the beginning of this year, we were, I think, on a pace to beat last year's sales by 7 or 10% the first few months in. And just like a water faucet, on our business has completely almost turned off. Now, I will say a third of our business is in licensed products, even though it's all over the board. So we would print items for amusement parks, which are all closed, movie theaters, which are all closed, sporting events. Obviously, those are all closed as well. So obviously, the hope is once all those businesses reopen, the business will return. But right now, we're very slow. We do have some essential items that we do run, like medical, and we also do some stuff for water bottles and things like that, which have been placing orders. But it's probably, again, maybe 10 or 15% of our overall business. So it's definitely been a challenge.
Have you had to deal with some furloughs or layoffs with your situation, Eric?
Well, I guess one of the later questions is kind of addressing that too. But right now we are, the 10th would have been the last paychecks, but we have applied for the payroll protection plan, I think it's called. And,
right.
If that application comes through and the funds come available, then we plan on keeping everybody paid, even though they're not here.
Yeah, I think there's several businesses, especially small businesses, that are doing a very similar thing. All right, thank you. I think we'll go to question number 2. Chris, I think I'll ask you this first. Within your facilities and offices, and we've touched on it a little bit, but any other specific things that you guys are doing to make sure facilities and offices are staying safe?
Absolutely. So at ITW, I think with all the different divisions, several steps have been implemented, and it's been challenging again. So the first thing was to get as many people working from home as possible. And it was interesting as the mad rush to try to get laptop computers and systems set up and make sure people had phones and all the basic hardware and structure that you need to run a business remotely. I'm used to it. I work out of the house, but so many of the staff do not. So there were many challenges there. And really a related portion to that was people that aren't used to working from home. We've got a lot of resources from our corporate people on how to do that effectively, how to manage that effectively, how to stay in touch and communicate. That was one thing. But directly involved with safety, we brought in extra cleaning crews. Certainly, we've always had them, but now we've stepped that up dramatically. We started cleaning of common areas between shifts as an additional precaution. We've tried staggering breaks and lunches to reduce the number of employees in any common areas at one time. We put signage and posters all around the buildings, just reminders of washing your hands and, coughing properly, all the basic stuff, but just to keep it out front and center. Also, we've reduced and even added shifts to spread out our workforce as much as possible. Much of our business is essential, and we have to have people there. But we are maintaining social distancing within the facilities. We are doing, but it's a challenge when you're working on equipment and you've got wiring to do and different testing, but you have to maintain a very common sense approach about it to make sure everyone's safe. Obviously, one infected person can cause catastrophic issues within a company. So those are the main steps that we've taken at this point.
Great, thank you, Chris. Kathy, anything else that you'd want to comment on what you guys are doing at your facility?
Well, we're doing everything that has already been said. We've already reduced our amount of people that are here during a shift. We've brought on multiple shifts. We've got the same signage and posters all throughout the building. We do not allow any vendors or customers inside our building. They are allowed to go to the dock, and we can talk to them through that area, but they're not in our building. Lunch breaks, dinner breaks, those two have been staggered out. Where you stand is clearly marked so that between the operators, there's 6 feet. The packers and the inspectors at the back of the lines, there's 6 feet. So we've pretty much done everything we can possibly do to keep everyone safe. If anyone does feel ill, we automatically send them home. It's just been extremely trying getting everything organized and set up. The Sunday that it came out that they said for sure in Dallas, Tuesday everything would shut down if you weren't an essential business. So there was a lot of work that I had to do between Sunday and Tuesday to get everything set up with our essential people that we do business with. So it's been taxing.
Yep, I'm sure it definitely has. Thank you. Eric, anything further like what you guys have done from a safety standpoint for employees at your facility?
Yes, the same actions have been taken, obviously, that have already been mentioned. I guess one issue that was unique to us is we have, we print heat transfers, so we have a couple printing lines, and you just can't move a printing line. I guess you could, but it would take months. So we shut one line down completely. That way the people weren't in a crowded area. I guess it didn't matter so much because business is slow, but that was probably a unique situation to us where the workstations are fewer than 6 feet apart. So the only option for us was either to stagger shifts or shut a line down. So we just ended up shutting a line down.
Great. And Keith, from your standpoint, and that's interesting what Eric brings up, and I might have you, I know Kathy said that their workstations are, about, at least 6 feet apart, or I don't know if you've dealt with that or had to make adjustments with how your workstations are, based on trying to keep that social distance?
Well, we've done several things. One is, just right off the bat, we did a company-wide employee meeting and just talked about the safety measures that everybody need to be focused on. We too are watching employees if they look sick or anything like that. I've got a sister company that I work with that they've instituted temperature measurement, so everybody that walks through the door, we basically take their temperature, and if they've got a temperature, they have to go home, and really just kind of focus on the cleaning and disinfecting. We've got a smaller operation, and so the social distancing in our operation is a little more challenging. So we've been very careful about just trying to make sure that everybody is aware of the safety precautions they need to be doing as far as washing their hands, not touching their ears, nose, mouth, wearing gloves, things like that. One additional thing that I would mention is we also communicated, and I'm sure some of the other companies have done so too, but just for your audience, we made sure all of our employees were aware of the Family First Coronavirus Response Act and what their rights were under that act. So if somebody had a family member that they needed to stay home with, or if an employee themselves were to get infected, and what their rights were, and consequently what our company's obligations were to them. And so we've done that. One of the things that in our communications with our company employees, towards the end, I basically concluded and told everybody to stay safe, stay calm, and don't freak out. And so we're just being very cautious about what we do and trying to be very prudent about it.
Positive attitude.
Keith, did as you had said, those first rights, the act, how did you communicate that to your employees? Did you have it posted up on a bulletin board? Did you provide printed information? I provided printed information. I also had the information displayed on the monitor so that it could be seen by the employees, and candidly had it in Spanish and English both, because we've got bilingual employees, and so that way somebody that was predominantly stronger in Spanish had their rights in Spanish, and consequently somebody that's stronger in English had their rights in English, and so that was one of the things that we did. There has been a question that's come over in regard to safety, asking about if any of your companies are monitoring, checking like the temperature as they arrive. So Keith, you mentioned that you are doing that, correct? We haven't at Pad Printing, but I'm involved with a sister company. I have a part ownership in a different unrelated business. It's actually a plastic injection molding operation, and it's a much larger employee base. And so, yes, there's 5 points of entry into the building, and we're taking temperatures at all 5 points. Are any of Chris, Terry, Kathy, are any of you guys doing anything with temperature taking?
The only temperature taking that we're
point.
doing here at AMDEC is if they come to us and they're not feeling well, we still send them home, but we do take their temperature for them here, and then we send them home.
Gotcha. As any of your companies in the workplace, are you requiring masks, that they must be wearing masks? Is that something you put in place?
Yes.
Jeff, we've done it on an optional basis. We haven't mandated it yet. We do provide masks for employees, and we also have plenty. Luckily, we had some forethought on getting some disinfectants in early, so we have wipes and we have some some gel sanitizer for all the key people. But as far as masks are concerned, it's completely voluntary at this point.
At this point, okay, great.
And we're the same
all
way.
right.
Ours are voluntary.
Voluntary at this point. Okay, excellent.
Jeff,
I think we'll move on. Kathy, I'll ask you this first. From a supply chain standpoint, how have you seen our current situation with COVID-19? How has that affected you from a supply chain, or has it affected your business with your suppliers?
It has not affected us as of yet. Right now, we're able to supply our customers. Our vendors are still able to supply us. So we're doing good right now. There is, although, when buying chemicals, there's a limit as to what you can buy. But we were fortunate in the fact that we already had an ample supply of a lot of what we're going to need in the future. So it's probably going to carry us through.
Great. So anything from an ink or a hot stamping foil, that type of thing, you haven't had any challenges at this time?
No. Everyone has been absolutely wonderful. Great.
Eric, from what you guys do at CDigital, from your supply chain to be able to produce the heat transfers, have you had any challenges?
Yes, we buy our raw material film stock from overseas, so that was our first challenge. We were eventually able to get more shipped in, but because of work stoppages and things like that, it was a pretty good delay before we were able to receive some of that raw material film. And we also have experienced on the other side where we've had orders actually canceled on us because our customers haven't been able to get product in from China as well. We print for the promotional products industry, where a lot of those drinkwares and trinkets and stuff that they hand out have been on short supply from China. And so even though you get a artwork approval and an order, and then it seems to get canceled because the item that they were going to apply the image to is out of stock, or our customers having issues bringing that in. I think long term, I know us for sure, we're going to reevaluate where we source that product from, and maybe either have two sources or a backup source in the future, or get a product pre-qualified. So if something like this happens again, we'll have a Plan B scenario.
That's kind of what I was going to ask, and I don't know if you've heard, but even from your promotional product sources, if they're looking at utilizing more of a U.S.-based manufacturer of the bottles or other promotional products, to have those made here, or have tried to have them made here to fill the orders that they need.
Yeah, I think they're in discussions with, about that in each individual business. It is typically a lot of times it's a giveaway item, so price weighs heavily on that. But I think all the industry of the promotional products will have to reevaluate themselves as well, or change their inventory model or something.
Great.
Try to protect themselves from something like this happening again.
Yep. It's a comment, but I think there's, of course, from a U.S.-based manufacturing, and certainly what we're all involved in, plastics, there could be certainly some positive at the end of this, with more overall business staying here in the States. Keith, same question to you. Anything that's affected you from a supply chain standpoint?
Well, the obvious is we ran into, or we're concerned right off the bat, a shortage of toilet paper and paper towels and wipes. And fortunately, we're able to have enough stock on hand for those. But more importantly is we looked at our inks and hardeners and chemicals and things of that nature and looked at our usage and effectively made sure that we had at least 6 months of supply of all of our key raw material components on hand. And if we didn't, we placed orders to facilitate that. And in some cases, we've gone as far as a year supply to just make sure that we've got ample, production capabilities and raw materials for what we need, and we're constantly monitoring that, certainly as we move forward. So we're trying to, there again, just make sure we've got stock for a 6-month period out.
Great. Thanks. This is going down. Okay. We'll move on to our next question for everyone. And, this comes into play with budgets and, what changes you're thinking of based on our, what's happening with the coronavirus. What type of things are you cutting back on or looking at changing from a budget standpoint? Eric, do you want to touch on that for us?
Sure, Jeff. Well, in the next month, I don't think we'll be making any extra expenditures or major purchases just because cash flow is tight right now. One of the effects that we didn't anticipate or we are now understanding is as the businesses that we were doing business with had cash flow issues, they stopped paying. And so our accounts receivable has been going up and our late payments have been really growing to where now we start to struggle with cash flow as well, being a small business. So in the short term, I don't think we'll be making any major purchases. Long term, we got to make a new budget, I would say, because we made a budget based on what our sales were going to be for 2020, and we were actually exceeding those sales, and we might have to come up with a new budget that more reflects what 2020 really will be. I think Chris mentioned already, but we are not traveling currently, so I don't know how long that'll be going on for, but there's really no travel budget, so we are saving money in certain areas. And hopefully we'll be able to accomplish everything that we set out to accomplish in the beginning of the year, like the shows we're committed to going to and spend. Short term, yes, we're definitely not spending any money.
Okay, thank you. Keith, same question on budget and what your types of things you're thinking you may have to change as you move in later in the year.
Well, short term, as I mentioned a while ago, from a raw materials perspective, we looked at, making sure we had 6 months supply. So we actually kind of went on a little bit of a spending spree from a raw material perspective. But certainly on a capital perspective, everything is on hold. We did have some major capital expenditures that we had planned for this year, but they were more in the back half of the year. We had already made our first quarter capital expenditures, and so as we kind of progress forward, we'll have to reevaluate the back half of that year and see whether or not we decide to continue to move forward with our expectations of those expenditures. Biggest concern would just be, the threat of any type of recession, and if that gets more intimate and more of a reality, then obviously we'll pull back on any of our planned capital expenditures. I'm hopeful that that's not where we end up and that we move forward with our planned expenditures. But we're just cautiously watching it.
Great. Chris, same question on the budget?
So I think we all face similar issues. There's a certain group of customers that business has basically been suspended on. So we're certainly seeing a hit not only in our consumables market, but, equipment orders, we're not allowed to work on them. We have a travel ban in place right now, so our sales expense certainly went down dramatically. But one good thing with ITW and what we're trying to do, I think back to 2007, 2008, the drastic or draconian cuts that were made in workforce and budgets and everything else. And right now, ITW's made a direct effort to not release any employees, to make sure everyone's employed and moving forward. The hope being long term that as business starts to come back, we're fully staffed with the skilled people that we have. So I think we've done a good job with that. But most things are basically now on hold. So there's certain things we need to do to conduct business, and we're doing fine there. We absolutely have to spend for those things. But in terms of larger projects and such, what I've seen is that we are continuing our development work. We are continuing, active business with the expectation of forecasting certainly taking a big question mark at this point. We have business that's out there for, going into next year. The question is, where do those forecasts go as this drags on longer and longer? So we'll have to address it as time comes. But right now, we're making a concerted effort to make sure that we're fully staffed, just taking the precautions that we talked about earlier.
Great, thanks. Kathy, same question on budgets and anything you are having to look at cutting back on.
Pretty much we're in the same situation as what everyone else has said so far this morning. We're not making any major purchases. We are monitoring our accounts receivables very, very closely because we are noticing that people are a little bit slower to pay. We're still keeping all of our employees employed, although they're on multiple shifts now. But we're just monitoring daily what's going on out in the business world and what our vendors are doing and what's going on with our customers and who's being allowed to do what. And it's kind of day by day right now. I know long range, future-wise, again, we will not be making any major purchases whatsoever.
All right, thank you. We do have another question that came over that's sort of, related to this. If anybody wants to answer it, that once business hopefully is coming back and the non-essential business opens up, have you guys or talked about the strategy that you have in place for once everything gets going again? It sounds like many of you haven't, really had to furlough or lay off a lot of people. But if there anybody, if there anything else that that have already talked about or put in place when things hopefully get better again.
I will say this. When everything gets back to normal, our plan here is to hit the road running really fast, working longer hours to get everyone back up and running and selling products. And hopefully this will teach everyone that things need to be made within the USA, not over there in China, Asia, but we need to take care of our own here in the United States.
I think that's a great point. Here, I'm with you. Chris, did you say something?
Yeah, I'll add to it a little bit. I've actually seen quite a bit of reshoring of businesses. It seems to be a massive trend throughout the country. But right now, we're making efforts, contingency plans as to what's next. So obviously, what's the best case, worst case scenarios and how we move forward. So we are making active efforts to keep in contact with customers, even if they're saying, look, we're kind of on a lull right now, give us a few weeks, give us a month or two. We find it very important at this point to stay in contact with them, to monitor some of the long-term projects that we've been working on, because we're looking, just at our build schedules and such, and what I anticipate happening is a massive, Q4 influx, where a lot of this pent-up demand that we hope will be released if this starts diminishing, we're going to see a lot of projects that have to get done at once, and we're looking at, okay, how do we staff for this? How do we procure for this? And how do we budget for that? Because there's a lot that goes into those types of items. But just as importantly, how are you feeding next year as well? I mean, here we are in April, and we're talking about 2021, but that's the nature of the business. So it's scary when you don't have what's right in front of you, but there's certainly a lot to look at when it comes to end of year as well as starting to build up for next year.
Great, thank you.
All
right, I think our last question here is, I think a lot of people are interested in this, that there's a lot out there with some of the new loans that are now available for small, medium-sized businesses, all businesses. Keith, I might ask you first, have you guys as a business already applied or looking at applying for some of the PPPs or the SBA loans that are now out there?
Sure, I'll be glad to cover it. We looked into several different opportunities. One was the economic injury disaster loan. We've looked into the tax credit for employers. We are not participating with either one of those. We have applied or did apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. We were very fortunate in that our banking relationship that we use worked with us over the weekend, and so our SBA loan application was submitted Sunday night, and we got funding on Tuesday. So we've already participated with the PPP program, and would highly encourage everybody else to look at that.
So you've already received your PPP funding?
Yes, on Tuesday.
Excellent.
So basically, when it opened up on Friday, I had already been in communication with my bank for pretty much every day prior to that for that whole week. So literally every day I was pulling together the information that they were telling me that they were going to need, doing schedules for payroll schedules or anything that I could help facilitate that process. And then what I found out is that there was a lot of uncertainty and not a whole lot of clarity on how everything was going to be computed. So it changed for me almost daily, and literally almost every day I was re-updating my numbers, and all the way through Sunday. Sunday morning I had a conference call with my banking relationship about 2 different businesses I work with, and our total computations changed, but everything was submitted probably about 3 o'clock that afternoon, maybe 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon. And then I got confirmation late Sunday night that they had been transmitted on to the SBA. And like I said, I got funding on Tuesday, so I was just very fortunate to kind of be proactive on the front end of it and have a banking relationship that worked through the weekend.
I like his thing.
Great. That's awesome. Chris, I don't know that is there anything that you would have on that subject matter?
No, unfortunately, being with ITW being such a large corporation, we're pretty well funded for something like this, but so it wouldn't really affect but certainly our customers, and many of them will have to take a look at that, but not ourselves.
Right. Kathy, on your end, have you guys applied for these loans?
Yes, I've applied for the PPP, and I actually bank with BBVA/Compass. So I was just able to get on to their online site yesterday. So we are actually in the process of downloading onto their site all the financial papers that they want.
So you've gone through all that process then already?
Yes.
Excellent. Eric, have you guys done a similar thing?
Yeah, we did apply for the PPP program, kind of opposite story of Keith, though. We tried to apply through a major bank, and because we didn't have a existing loan or business relationship with them, we were going to be put on the bottom of the pile, so we actually went to a smaller local bank. I think it would have been Tuesday. I think our loan package finally got submitted, but we have not received any funding as of yet.
As a small business here with Plastics Decorating and our Peterson Publications, we had a somewhat similar situation with Keith and was able to get the PPP loan in fairly quickly. We were talking to our banker through the weekend. We have not, but we did get it in, I believe, on Monday. We have not received any funds yet, but I certainly encourage all businesses that that can and is eligible for those to do that as soon as possible. Okay, I'm just looking on any other questions. I have one here that came in that says, are any of you guys doing anything in addition to phone calls to maintain contact with your customers? Any group conference calls, any other ways of having some, keeping in contact or keeping in front of your customers?
This is Keith. I'll just touch on something real quick. I've reached out to several of my customers and have even, offered up to have some meetings with them or anything like that. And ironically, most of them are working from home, our primary contacts. And so, pretty much everything, all communications are just for the current situation are either via phone or via email.
Same here.
Same there, Kathy, with you? Yeah.
Jeff, this is Chris. We have actually had, in addition to the virtual acceptance tests that I mentioned earlier, I'm starting to see a lot more Skype meetings for projects. Again, we have a lot of times you really need to see the parts or see exactly what they're doing. So we're getting a lot more detailed information, whether it's through a URS specification, just emails back and forth. But certainly it comes down to a time when you need to meet, quote unquote, face-to-face virtually. And so we're doing a lot of Skype meetings. We use Skype. I know other people use Zoom. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. But it gives you a chance to kind of walk through a product. We have projects internally that I need to talk to all my group members, and the only way to do that really effectively is to do it through a Skype meeting. So we're seeing a large increase in that, not to the extent that I thought it would be, but it seems to be growing more and more the more that customers realize that, we're not going to be just jumping right back into normalcy, so to speak. So that's at least the trend that I'm seeing at this point.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right. Well, we're getting close on time. Just wanted to let everybody that's on the webinar today that know that it has been recorded, and we will have this available for any of your other associates or people that might want to get on to watch this. You can go to our plasticsdecorating.com website and click on the webinar link at the top on the navigation bar, and that'll take you into that section, and you'll be able to watch the webinar. We do have another one on there as well on UV curing for plastics that's available to you, and our plan is to grow that section on the Plastics Decorating website. We're going to be looking at introducing some educational webinars in the coming weeks through our Decorating Assembly Division and Plastics Decorating magazine. So look for those through email or visit our sites for details. Right now we have a topical conference scheduled for the middle of June in Detroit area. I think we all know that it's probably pretty unlikely at this point that we're going to conduct that. So we may be doing something virtual and conducting more educational webinars, and instead of with us most likely not being able to have the in-person conference. So keep an eye on that. Again, I want to thank our panelists, Keith, Chris, Kathy, and Eric, for joining us today. We really appreciate you, telling us some of the things you're doing and what's going on, and we hope that everything gets better real soon. But hopefully, maybe there's some information everybody was able to get from the webinar today. If any other questions come up that you want to ask us here at Plastics Decorating and at Peterson Publications, feel free to get hold of us, and we'll be glad to help. Thank you again. I appreciate everybody being on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, everyone.